Hi, everybody. I want to share results from our winter 2022 student survey. I'm going to try to make this video as quick and to the point as possible. So I'm going to encourage you at different times that if you want to read everything on the slide, just to pause the video. Or the other thing you can do is click on the link that I'm going to provide on my blog where it says link to PowerPoint. And you can look at that at your own pace at any time. Let's dive in. Oh, give me a second here. There we go. My goal today is to really help faculty get ready to take the faculty survey, where we want to ask you what you want to do in winter quarter as far as what modalities we should offer. To do this, I'm going to cover 3 topics. I'm going to talk about our enrollment. I'm going to give you a quick snapshot of what other schools in the area are doing, and then I'm going to spend most of the time talking about the results from the student survey. So let's move on to enrollment. Fall looks great as far as enrollment goes. So this is unusual news and very, very happy news. The trend or the truth is that over the last 5 years, we've lost 45% of our enrollment, and we've never had a quarter where we went up compared to the previous quarter, except for summers, which are a little wonky anyway. But for fall, when we compare to the previous fall, we didn't just go up, but we appear to have gone up 18%. So that's not a small chunk. That's a pretty sizable increase, and that's great. Let me sort of acknowledge I'm comparing fall to fall when I say 18%, and that 45% is 5 years of decline. So 1 quarter of improvement doesn't really make a dent in those 5 years, but it's still just great. Fall worked. Why did fall work? I want to acknowledge that today is really focused on the modalities and what our choice in the fall to offer hybrid as well as online classes. And that might be why fall worked. But I also want to acknowledge that fall might have worked for a whole bunch of other reasons. It could simply be that the college finally had enough Chromebooks and we got technology in students' hands in a timely manner. It could be that our classes are just finally so good and students are finally so used to our classes that they're starting to really come and bounce back. It could be that Seattle Public Schools decided to have in-person instruction for kids, and therefore a lot of the parents in our program finally said, yay, I can focus on my English classes and I can go back. There's all these possible reasons why fall was good. One of them, I just want to acknowledge our BTS admin team. They've done a fantastic job of making the intake process really smooth. Any of these could have been why our enrollment went up, but either way, the message from enrollment is whatever we did in fall worked really well. Let's keep it up, and we want to keep that in mind when we think about modalities for winter. Now, if you are an enthusiast about enrollments and you really want to look at the data closely, I'm just going to encourage you to pause right now, or again, click on the link below. Here's just a bunch of fast facts about how enrollment has shaped up. I'll just quickly mention one particular fact that I get asked a lot. Our enrollment had typically been dropping between 6 and 8% a year. In the first quarter of COVID, comparing quarter to quarter, it dropped 21%. So it's sort of fair to say that we were declining, but COVID made our decline 3 times worse. We've since come back, and there's some good stuff in there too. Let's take a look at what's going on though around the system. So this was just an email among some of the deans in King County. So when I say around the system, I'm really saying King County. And again, this is a good time to pause if you want to read everything on the screen, but I'm just going to hit some highlights. The highlights being that almost everybody for winter is planning some mix of 100% in person, hybrid, and 100% remote. There's a couple of exceptions that really stand out. Bellevue says that they're going to do nothing but 100% remote, even though they're seeing that students are asking for in-person classes. And Everett stands out to me because they say that starting last summer, they did nothing but in person and that they are full and adding classes. So there are some outliers there. Again, if you want to pause and take a look at everything on the screen, you should do that now, because I'm moving on. Next, I want to get into the survey. And before we look at the answers that student gave us, I want to take a look at who took the survey, because it's fair for you to say to me, John, before we use the survey data, let's make sure it represents all of the voices of our students. So this first slide takes a look at our student breakdown by level. And what you can see is we have decent representation from all the levels. If I compare this to actual enrollment, I would have liked to have seen level 1 students' voices actually be a little bit lower. I would have liked to have seen level 4 students actually be a little bit higher, but really things like level 3 being our tallest, level 5 and 6 being kind of small, that fits our enrollment. So overall, I think in aggregate, if you're saying, did this survey kind of capture student voices across the levels in a way that fits our students as a whole? My answer is yeah, pretty close. Another question you could ask is, okay, did the fall survey do a good job capturing the right mix of fall students who are online and hybrid? And the answer here, once again, is looks good. We could actually say it's perfect because 42% of our classes are hybrid and 42% of the fall student survey takers were hybrid students. That's not actually perfect for reasons about enrollment, but don't worry too much about that, or again, read what I have on the screen if it's interesting to you. But I do want to mention one thing that I have on there. Later on, when I look at the key question about what modality should we offer for winter, I disaggregate this data. In other words, I look at just the hybrid students and what they're saying. I look at just the online students and what they're saying. And that's a good way to make sure that you're not overshadowing someone's voice. The third factor that I want to tell you about who took the survey is this question of how many people who took the survey have actually ever taken either a hybrid or in-person class. Because it's fair for you to say, well, how can people make a decision that they think in-person or hybrid is good if they've never done it? This is a real reality. I don't want to say a problem, but I just want to say a factor in our survey. And that what the data here showed is that a little more than half of the students who took the survey have never taken an in-person or hybrid class. So if you assume that students are taking a class, that they're having a good experience, which I think they are, then chances are they're going to want to keep the modality that they have. And you can imagine then that the survey then is going to kind of favor online a little bit, and it could sort of lower the voice for in-person, or flipping that on its head. If someone is asking for in-person, that's kind of interesting because we are not sure if they've ever even taken in-person. And so we'd expect that voice to be a little more muted. Same thing you could argue for hybrid, less with hybrid, given that we're offering hybrid classes this fall, but want to kind of be transparent about who took the survey and what sort of ideas or preconceived notions that they're bringing in as they take the survey. All right, let's get to results. I'm again going to just encourage you to pause the screen if you want to look at this closely, but here's the summary. Hybrid students on main campus, most of them want to stay hybrid. It's not as strong as I expected. It's only 53%, but that's still the biggest chunk, with another 7% who want in person and the rest saying online. So my takeaway from here is hybrid is still the right thing for main campus fall daytime classes. It's interesting to keep in mind, though, that if I can open a second section, I should probably make it all online, because that's a pretty big, this is our second choice. But as you guys know, I can't always open a second section of every level. So what about the main campus students for fall who only took online classes? These are mostly evening students. What you see on the survey is 75% of the students who took an online class wanted to stay online. This is closer to what I would have expected. If students are having a good experience, they're having the modality that they want, it's important to acknowledge 10% would actually like in person, another 13% want just a couple days a week in person, but really there's a really strong, I guess 77%, let's keep the evening classes 100% remote or 100% online. So that's my takeaway from this. The real shift comes from New Holly. So New Holly for fall quarter is all hybrid. New Holly request from students for winter quarter, 2 out of 3 students basically are saying, let's go in person. And a very, very small number, percentage anyway, are actually saying online. So I think this is one of the questions that I'm going to wrestle with in the faculty survey, and you'll see me ask you this information. But the question basically boils down to, should New Holly move to all in-person for winter quarter when we consider the fact that 2/3 of students want us to do that? So I want to shift then to the third kind of part of this survey, and that was trying to think about what is driving student choices. So we asked students, when you are thinking about whether you want winter online, hybrid, or in-person, what factors are you thinking about? The biggest chunk of people who did respond to this said that they are taking care of either their kids or their families. What you can see is the second biggest chunk is job, third biggest is COVID-19, and then transportation and tech trouble. What stands out for me here is the fact that COVID-19 is not really leading the pack. So I think that's really compelling. And it's interesting too, just to see that tech trouble is way down the line. Now that may be because we offered hybrid and therefore students can get face-to-face help with their tech troubles. Maybe again, all these other factors, maybe we just got the technology in students' hands. Maybe we're finally really good with it, who knows? But that stood out for me too. I wanted to take a closer look though at those first three groups. And so I started with the family caretakers / parents. So what modality, if you're a parent or you're taking care of your family members, did you want for winter? Well, what I found interesting here was I was expecting to see online because I had heard anecdotally that a lot of parents with young kids were really appreciating the online so that they could come to class and still have their kids on the lap and deal with their family issues. I'm not saying that's not true. What's interesting to me that you see on the chart here is that is true for about half the students. So if we're starting to say, hey, don't forget about our parents, don't forget about those people who have to take care of family members, they want online, that's true for about half the cases. That's significant. That's not nothing. That's not zero. It's a 50-50 coin toss, but it's also not saying all of them. So it's interesting. It's even more mixed when you look at people who are working. So what do students with jobs want? Again, you're going to see the biggest one is online, but this one begins to me look a little bit closer to a third. So again, I don't want to call this myth busting, but this is sort of me coming in with an idea, curiosity to say, well, I wonder if people who have jobs, if they really want online because it's convenient for them. Well, people with jobs are actually picking all three. And then the other one that stood out for me that was really interesting was the people who said COVID was a concern for them. So this is just a subset of students who indicated that COVID was one of the factors that they thought about as far as whether they wanted in-person, hybrid, or online. And what stands out for me here again is, yes, about half of them say they want online, but a notable chunk say I want in-person, and a notable chunk also say I want hybrid. So the takeaway here is that even though students remain concerned about COVID, that doesn't mean that they do not want to come in person or in hybrid classes. I think of my own experience in my own life. I have school-age kids. Seattle Public Schools is doing in-person instruction. I'm excited for that. I think my kids are enjoying school. They're telling me they're enjoying school. They're much happier. They're much healthier, and they're probably doing better. I haven't looked at their grades, but I also remain worried about COVID. So when I look at this, I think that's the message I'm taking away from this, is that just because someone's worried about COVID doesn't mean that they want online. It means they want us to be careful and have good health and safety practices in place. Here's another place where I'll invite you just to hit pause. Here are just individual student comments that they added as far as what is helping them make their choice. So again, now's the time to press pause, and I move on. One last thing I wanted to look at was, are there preferences by level for either in-person, hybrid, or online? So a lot of deans, or at least some deans in the early pandemic, were saying, man, I need to have in-person back for my lower level students. My lower level students will very much want in-person. Here again is the survey. I think it's pretty representative. I think we've done a decent job with the survey, and we're not necessarily seeing the lower levels beg for in-person any more than some of the other levels are begging for. So this just kind of goes back to, is there an assumption, is there myth busting around lower levels need in-person? Well, I would say, yeah, it looks like that myth is busted. And that really what I did see, and I mentioned it earlier, was it really broke down by New Holland and main campus as far as wanting in-person instruction. All right, so that's it. Hope this was quick. Hope you stuck with me. Again, my takeaways are right there on the screen. Main campus morning, I believe I'm hearing students say, keep it hybrid. Main campus evening, I believe I'm hearing students say, go online. New Holly is the one that changes, where I think students are asking us to go in person. Please take the faculty survey as an experiment. I am going to try to include a place where you can put comments below this video. So if you want to leave comments of things that you're seeing, so your colleagues and other faculty can look at that and say, hey, here's something of the data that I saw that John didn't bring up. You can add that too. My goal, just so you know, is to have a draft of the, let me rewind. My goal is to have all of this survey to close next Thursday. So maybe by late next week or early the week following, I can give you the feedback from this survey. And then I quickly want to get a draft of the schedule out. I'll get together with the full-timers and put them on that draft, and then we'll get choices going, hopefully, so everyone kind of has an idea of what their winter assignment is before Thanksgiving. That's my personal goal. All right, thank you for sticking with me. Stop watching videos on your computer, get back to work, have a good day, and bye-bye.